Here is a team that had a 3-2 lead on the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals. That was just a couple months ago. Since then, Chris Paul got hurt, Houston never able to close out that series, and in this past week, they have lost both Trevor Ariza and Luke Maamute in free agency. And now, Woj reporting the Rockets are expected to ramp up a pursuit of Carmelo Anthony once the Thunder workout had to get him off of their payroll. So, I want to kind of take all of this together and find out from you, do you feel this is a good fit from a basketball perspective? And also, let's not forget that Mike DAntoni has said publicly more than once that Carmelo Anthony is the reason he had to resign from the Knicks back in 2012. So how much does that history get taken into account here too?
Well, I don't think it's as much a big of a deal as just the basketball fit. I think that's the big issue when we talk about Houston. I think Carmelo Anthony and Mike have both grown from that experience, and if they had to do it again, they would have done it differently. But that's not the issue here. The issue here is that the Houston Rockets were great defensively because they had three guys, P.J. Tucker, Luke Mbamute, and Trevor Ariza, who could switch everything, who could guard everything, and could all shoot threes. And now they lost two of those three guys, and when you place them with Carmelo Anthony, his offensive talent is unquestioned, but he doesn't satisfy the things that they lost walking out that door in the defensive side.
Dave, what about you?
In the 2013-2014 season, I covered Mike DAntoni when he was head coach of the Lakers, and the Lakers were looking forward to that summer free agency, potentially bringing in Carmelo. And I spoke to Mike about it, and I'm fine with him. I know the past was rocky, but bring him here. I want what's best for the franchise, and we need talent to win. This move is not ideal, sure, for the Rockets. Obviously they had the most wins in the league last year with the two-way prowess of a guy like Trevor Ariza. But a motivated Carmelo Anthony playing with those two guys that he played so much with last summer when he was Hoodie Melo and James Harden and Chris Paul can be a bigger factor than perhaps what we saw in OKC last year.
We saw the joke Oklahoma City Thunder uniforms with the hood. Maybe they should actually make the hood uniform for Carmelo. We could get somewhere here. Look, I've talked to Daryl Morey in the last 24 hours and of course, would never address a player on another team because that would be tampering, but just spoke in general about his philosophy. And he said versions of this before. He said you cannot try to beat the Golden State Warriors with that collection of talent without taking some gambles. So whatever they do, whether it is not chasing Luke as he signed that deal with the Clippers, or whether it is possibly going after Carmelo Anthony or whatever else they do, that is his approach. He also reminded me that their roster as it is this week is not necessarily what their roster is going to be in April. And he said that's really what's important to us, is how we evolve over the coming months. I am interested, though, because, I'm with you. There's a lot of questions about the basketball fit. And, of course, there's also, guys, a question about Clint Capella, because we know that he is, of course, a restricted free agent. Our own Tim McMahon has been reporting in Dallas that the offer for him has not been what he wanted. According to McMahon, the deal that they've offered him so far is in the ballpark of 4 years for $60 million, while Clint wants about $100 million for 4 years. That would put him in sort of the similar place of Steven Adams in Oklahoma City. Dave, who do you think blinks first here?
Well, back when I was the Cavs, summer 2015, there was no market for J.R. Smith, and David Griffin ended up giving him $5 or $6 million. And I asked him, why'd you do that? Because I wanted him to come to camp excited to play and not feel like we completely, held one over him. And that's why I think the Rockets might not totally pay Capella the number he thinks he deserves, but they're gonna really diminish his value so much to the point where he would feel disgruntled and underappreciated, because that goes from being shrewd to being, dumb, really. There's a difference between being shrewd and being smart, being shrewd and being dumb, and they had to give a number that he will still feel excited about being a part of their plans long term.
I think it's out of the question that he should be looking for $100 million. He's so integral to what they do. You mentioned Steven Adams. Rudy Gobert is another guy in the $100 million range as a center. When you talk about Clint Capella defensively, what he's able to do, protect the rim, defensive rebounding, get out on the perimeter, switch, move his feet, guard a Kevin Durant out in space. And then offensively, he knows his job. I'm going to set screens. I'm going to roll hard. I'm going to dunk on people. There's value to that. There's immense value to that. And in a weird way, he's not their best player. He's not their most important player, but he might be their most irreplaceable player because guess what? If Chris Paul goes down, I still have a Hall of Fame point guard at James Harden. If James Harden goes down, I still have a Hall of Fame point guard at Chris Paul. If you don't have a Capella out there, who on that roster can do what he does?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's funny, one of the big questions, too, has been where the Rockets want to end up in the luxury tax. In that same article, Tim McMahon asked the new owner, hey, is this part of what's driving these decisions? Trevor Ariza letting him go to Phoenix, and of course we know that $15 million contract the Suns gave him was very pricey. And then with Mount letting him go to the Clippers, really for a mid-level exception that Houston could have paid, although how much of that money is earmarked for Carmelo Anthony. I mean, when you get into tiers of the luxury tax and whether they're going to go into the luxury tax, which they will with these big contracts, but the difference between maybe the second tier and the third tier, how big is that a factor when putting these rosters together?
I mean, there's two ways to look at it. One is the man upstairs gives you the number. This is how much we're willing to spend. And as a front office, you have to figure out how to make it work within those parameters. Sometimes the man upstairs says go all the way forward. Sometimes they say, hey, I don't want to go past this certain level. But the other way to look at it, Rachel, is we know these windows are fleeting. It might look wide open, it's going to be here forever, and you look up, and next thing you know, you're back in the pack, and the game has passed you by. And so I'm not here to tell another man how to spend his money, but the Rockets had a legitimate chance of winning a championship last year in a way that nobody gave them a real shot of at the beginning of the year. You can't become a penny pincher now. This is the time where you go all in, and if it doesn't work, then you can scale back later.
I mean, it's a brand new owner, too. I mean, he's not going to want to take a step backwards from where they were last season. So I'd imagine this would be the time he would have an open wallet because he's trying to set his stake and make his mark on that franchise, that city, and the league.